And bada bing, bada bing. Here we are, live for Triple T number 122. Scooby Doo. Wow. April 30th, 2024. Who'd have thunk it? But we're here. I'm happy we're here. It's been quite a week here. My name is TJ Zebel. I like to tell everybody I'm a professional problem solver, which I always have to follow up with, no, I don't know everything. I just have this unique way of asking questions and drilling down and helping people find the solutions to their challenges, issues, whatever you want to call them. I get to help people with depression, anxiety, phobias, PTSD, relationship challenges. I offer corporate coaching, work with athletes from beginner all the way up to the pro level. I do have a website, which is thetswb.com, the tall skinny white boy.com. That's what it stands for, has since back in high school. So, yep, been that for a while. What else we got? We're live on YouTube. Hi, Mom. Love you. And for those of you that are also watching on YouTube, please do all the YouTube things that we all know about. Click the subscribe and ring the bell and leave comments, and then comment on your comments and comment on other people's comments, because I like the comments. And it doesn't cost you anything, but makes me feel good. I ain't gonna lie. I'm that kind of guy. Time to introduce the tie. I counted up the remainder of my cool cartoon ties, and I didn't have enough to finish out the whole year, so we're going to have a couple of basic dress ties. So this is the week's dress tie. I've actually had this one since probably the mid-90s, and I don't get to wear it very often, so got that one going. For those of you that are new to Triple T or watching for the very first time, thank you so much for showing up. If the way I run the show, this is all live, unrehearsed, as you can tell, off the cuff. The first hour, I've got 3 subjects that I try to get through. I do emphasize try to get through. And the second hour is open mic, open platform, and anybody on the call can ask any questions, bring up any topics. So if you're watching out in YouTube land or watching a recording, join us. You don't even have to know how to spell NLP. Seriously, I just proved that. Bada bing, badum. But I also like to start off with asking anybody on the call, do you have anything cool, awesome, ahas, epiphanies, things you'd like to share from the last week? And Holly, what's up, Holly?
So there's a few things I could talk about, but one thing that was my theme for the last week, it just kept coming up over and over again. The first time it came up, so I like to watch different shows while I'm getting ready for work sometimes, and just kind of in the background. And the one that kind of popped on in my random algorithm was an old Dick Van Dyke episode called I Was a Teenage Head Writer. And basically the episode goes back in time, and it kind of shows that 2 people who have a job don't get the promotion, and instead somebody else gets hired as their boss. And anyway, what kind of kept coming through my mind is, this looks like such an insult to them in the moment, but this is going to be the best thing that ever happened to him, because he's such a good boss, and he buffers them from what's going on above them, all the drama. And it just kept coming up over and over again this week. And sometimes the thing that seems like a failure, that seems like an insult, that seems like the worst thing that's ever happened to you, once you let it play out, often it becomes the best thing that ever happened to you, and you just don't know it yet.
100%. Been there many, many, many times. People wonder why it can be so chill in the storm. It's because I've been through enough and came out the other side all the better. So thank you for sharing that. Anybody else got anything they want to share, or you got something else? You said you had a few things.
Well, some of them may contribute to questions I may ask in the second hour. So,
Oh, good. We got questions for the second hour. Anybody else before we jump into the topics of the week? No? Everything same? Okay. Well, topics of the week this week. Learning languages. Why so angry? And maintenance. So, last week I got some good feedback on the first topic, the way I handled it. So I'm going to ask a few people on the call, what's the best language that you've learned other than what was spoken in your house? And I'm sure a few people are like, I only speak the one language. Lenora.
Language is super near and dear to my heart, and most people would think language is the language that you speak, but there is also the language of your body language, the language of your tone, the language of how you communicate with your energy. There's lots of different things, and I like to think of it as an art, each of them as an art, because they're things that you can build upon.
Exactly. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. By the way, I got to throw out a quick shout out to somebody that I look up to and have for a long time who just joined the call. Mr. V, thank you for showing up. Wow, what an honor. Little history, Mr. Verigi was an art teacher when I was in elementary school. And when I bought out Yurka Photography, we were both kind of competing in the wedding photography market and a few others. And it was a great privilege to have another person, especially him, in the realm. So thank you for showing up, Mr. B. But back to the question, who else would like to share a language that they learned? Yes, Mark.
I just finished binge watching Lie to Me, that that
Great
TV
show.
program. Yeah, and every time I watch it, I pick up a few more body language cues, and the body can't lie, because the subconscious can't lie, and the emotional mind can't lie. And I was thinking that at some point, again, this AI stuff, they're going to program it to, if they haven't already, to read body language clues, and that's going to be a huge help to law enforcement, because suspects won't be able to lie. So the only danger is when they turn it on us, so on themselves. But learning, like I said, watching that show, you pick up all the little cues, the half shoulder shrug when someone's not telling the truth. There's all the body. Like I said, the body is, someone. Did you do that? And it'll be like, no, but first, because the body can't lie, it nodded first, So yeah, binge watching that over the last week. Every time I do it, I pick up something new.
Awesome. Exactly. I watched same thing. It's funny that show, a lot of people watch it for entertainment until you realize that there's a lot of accurate stuff in there, and you start watching it as a classroom. It's pretty cool. Holly.
Oh yes, I absolutely love that show. That actually reminded me too of in fifth grade we were introduced for the first time to the people code, which is the colors, the red personalities, the blue personalities, the white personalities, and the yellow personalities. And that was so eye-opening to me because that was the first time in my entire life that occurred to me that people think in different ways. And, so a lot of people, like after that, the first thing I would always do is ask everybody, what color are you? What color are you? And then I'd like try to diagnose what color they were, and was the next phase. And, a lot of people thought I was trying to put them in a box and pinhole them. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I think everybody's all four, it's just different mixes of different mixes. But it is so eye-opening to me to walk into a room and say, oh, I was thinking this, but you are thinking this. And I may not know what you're thinking unless I actually take the time to get to know you and to, I find the fact that people are different than me fascinating. So anyway.
Great answer. And yeah, all of this is tying into what I was going to present tonight. Anybody else before we dive in? Yes, no? Bueller? Okay, learning languages. The reason I brought this up, we're in the process of getting our house painted. And there's a bit of a language challenge with the majority of the workers. We're here in Texas. And so I found out that I speak a lot better Spanglish than I gave myself credit for. But it also comes down to when I was in Europe for a year and traveling around, and like Lenora brought up, you learn to communicate with anything you have. Body language, pointing, you start looking around, what do you have in common? And it will teach you to search for commonalities at a level that you probably never thought of before. There's a lot of people that will search for incommonalities, non-commonalities, whichever word. Obviously, I don't have that one. But when you're put into a position where you don't know the language, you find yourself searching for any commonality that you can find. And it dawned on me, I've heard many people, oh, I wish I could learn a different language. Oh, this, and oh, it's so hard to learn a different language. And I tell them, you've been learning different languages all the time, constantly. If you change a job, you're learning a different language because you have to figure out how the new workspace communicates with each other. And I've had a lot of different professions. I know Mr. V he's watched me through a couple of them. When I got tossed out of the frying pan into the fire of owning a photography studio, wow, that was a whole new language. And I had to learn real quick, real fast. And when you go into a mechanic shop, which I've done, that's a whole different language. If anybody's tried to take their car in for repair, I was one of the ones that you had to talk to. And if you didn't understand the language much, us mechanics had to figure out what you were talking about. We had one lady that brought in her car, said we needed to fix it because her husband said that the destinator was bad. And we're like, did he say the alternator? No, it was the destinator. Oh, well, was it, or could it have possibly been the distributor? And she got mad, like, no, I thought you guys were real mechanics. He said the destinator. We're like, oh, the destinator. Yeah, oh, yes, different car. It's one of the newer cars. We don't work on these very much. We'll get it fixed for you. And so off she goes, and we're looking at each other going, destinator. Guess we're gonna have to figure out what that is. And so when we're going through this, sometimes we have to learn languages because of the situation we're put into. I got to meet another gentleman who was working around LA, and heaven forbid, if any of you have ever had to experience driving around LA, what? There's a traffic jam 24/7, 365. Seriously. It's just to what degree is the traffic jam? What degree is rush hour 24/7, 365? So this guy, on average, drove hour and a half to 2 hours one way to get to work every day. And he was smart enough to realize that he could either sit there and listen to mind-numbing junk, or he could take that time and he bought learn a language CDs. And he put those in, and that's what he listened to on his commute every day, 3 to 4 hours a day. Well, he got proficient at one and went, all right, bought another one. Pretty soon found out that he was proficient at, I think it was 7 different languages. And he was just doing it because he enjoyed it. It was mind open. He happened to mention it to somebody that he now speaks English and 7 other languages. And they were like, you do know that there's a big need for interpreters. He goes, yeah, but what would I do? Well, they opened his eyes to what he could do and what he doesn't have to do, which is he doesn't have to drive an hour and a half to 2 hours one way every day. And he doesn't have to worry about getting his bills paid anymore, because he found out what they pay people who can fluently speak 7 or 8 languages. And he accomplished that, I think he said, in 3 years of driving to work. He was going to be driving to work anyway. So that brought up, what can we learn in our spare time? And it reminded me that I have to take my own advice. I love listening to music as much as possible. My wife will tell you, from the time I get up until the time I go to sleep, if she's not around, music is on. When I'm down in the shop, we'll put it this way, my neighbors actually listen to a lot of really good music. if they want to or not, because I like to share. But the last couple of days made me realize, why am I not fluent in 2 or 3 other languages? When I started working with Dr. David Snyder, whole new language, NLP, regression, regressed cause spinning, that's all new language. And somebody can say, oh, no, that's technique. It's a technique built on language. The things that we do with clients is heavy on language. So again, I'll throw the question out. When's the last time you learned a new language? And what's the favorite thing about the new language that you learned? Mark.
Well, I know that you and I are both very fluent in sarcasm. That's a language. We're definitely fluent. When I had 2 years of French in grammar school, 4 years in high school, and 3 years in college, and I am not by any means fluent in French, but all the knowledge was in there. So I was listening to a broadcast in French. I think it was from Canada, and I was I had a 2-hour journey, and just as a game that I was playing with myself, I was translating what they were saying into English, but I was also taking the English and, I just made it a game in my head, and I was amazed at the vocabulary and the stuff that was popping into my head. I'm not fluent in French, but I could translate, because that other part of me, the inner child just wants to play. As soon as I framed it as a game, I was amazing myself with all the words that were popping into my head, from the French, and then translating what the announcer was saying. And it was like, damn, that other part of me remembers a lot more than I do, because I can just barely say a few sentences in French, but he's fluent in French because, again, I am, but it was just a game, something to do, kill the time. And, but I amazed myself. I was coming up with all kinds of, phrases and, vocabulary words. And I did not know I had all that knowledge stored in there until I, gave him, the desire to play the, translate into French game. And, he was very proficient at it, but consciously I don't recall too much French. So
And I'm so glad you brought that up, because it reminded me when I was living in Europe and I was in Norway, and they were having September, May 17th is kind of like their July 4th for us. And Norway knows how to throw a party. And a lot of Europe shows up to party with Norway because they know how to do it. And I found myself in the town square in Oda, Norway, around midnight, with people from at least 6 different countries. And they were all butchering the English language, because that was the one commonality, the one common language that they knew enough to communicate. And it hit me, out of all of us there, I was the only one in the group that spoke one language. And I went, wow. Here I am kind of laughing at them. But if they pick another language, if they decide that they know Spanish just as much as English, I'm toast. And yet we had people from Finland and Denmark and Sweden and France and Ireland, and it was one of those life-defining moments where you just go, there is a big world out there. Lenore.
That's one of my favorite things about traveling is that people are so determined to communicate and people are so determined to try and help them while they're traveling. People really want to understand each other. And when you come to the table wanting to understand each other, it's a completely different world. And I absolutely love that you pointed that out, that they really do know other languages. And it's staggering how other countries teach their children and the things that they learn. And I would love to understand another language, of which I did start listening to CDs when I would drive for home health. And I did try learning Italian from the front seat of my driver's side car. And it was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. Oh my goodness. But it's great to play with, for sure.
Awesome. Holly.
So everything everybody's saying is triggering stuff. I'm actually curious, because I've spent, I can't even count how many hours trying to learn Italian in my car. That was like my number one car one. I even learned, my parents are fluent in Spanish, and when I went to Costa Rica, I needed to learn some stuff, and I learned just enough to get by, and I lost it all already. Like I've spent hours doing German, hours doing Russian, Hebrew, all these languages. I can't even remember the alphabet. So I am kind of, and this doesn't just apply to those kind of languages. I've, just learning. We talked about other kind of languages of cultures or professions or whatever. So I'm just kind of curious what people think. Probably not just hours put in is the thing that is my takeaway. And I think part of it might be, you have a reason to do it, and part of it might be having a competent teacher, competent feedback or whatever. I'm not sure. I'm just kind of curious, what do you think is A, the key to learning it better, and B, to retaining it as well?
Well, I think part of it is the pressure to communicate. When you're there, just like I studied French in high school mainly because of the teacher. I ain't gonna lie. She was awesome. And yet now when I've had friends whose kids were going to school and they're like, well, my kid wants to learn, take language. Which one should they learn? And I said, well, best advice I can give, have them go down to Walmart and see which foreign language they hear. Hate to break it to you, probably not going to be French. Probably going to be Spanish. But one thing that I did do that I'm glad I did, and I'm going to put this challenge out to all of you, anybody that hears this part, learn how to say thank you and you're welcome in as many languages as possible. It has helped me so many times. If that's the only two things you know how to say, rapport. And I proved it over and over and over. And I don't want to burn up the rest of the time with stories, but I literally could tell you stories for the next 45 minutes of how just happening to be able to say thank you or you're welcome, game over. they knew that that's all I could say. But because I made the attempt, they went far out of their way to help me out. So, anybody else got something they want to share before we, yes? Oh,
I was giving a thumbs up.
okay.
I agree.
Caught it out of
oh.
the corner of my eye.
Sorry, actually, I added in the chat, Holly had said, she asked, what do you think the key is? And I think the desire to do it, but also to have a buddy, to really be able to practice back and forth. And this was something absolutely, and I love that you pointed out that NLP is a language and learning hypnosis is a language. And whether you have a buddy, whether that buddy is somebody who's 2 steps ahead of you, or they're a coach, or whatever it may be, but to have somebody to practice with, and just like anything else. And you know what boggles my mind? Sorry, I'm spiraling here. Why this is not something that is cheered on about or constantly supported? Like, oh, hire somebody. Oh, get a coach. Like, there's handstand coaches, there's yoga coaches, there's fitness coaches, but for certain other things, people are like, oh, you can't make money with that, or no, that's a terrible idea, or oh, don't do that. Oh, yeah, I'm going down a rabbit hole. I'm gonna stop now.
And I have 3 squirrels over here that are screaming right now because what you brought up, I'll be right with you, Mark, so that they don't go away and I forget. When my mother had her assisted living business, I heard of a brilliant idea, and afterwards I couldn't find it again. And what it was a software or a website or something that put young foreign students in contact with elderly people in these homes to chat, to practice their English. The kids needed a buddy to converse with, and the people in the homes just wanted someone to talk to. And when you put the 2 of them together, I was like, oh, and then I couldn't find it again. Now, the other squirrel just said, and you should have went out and started it yourself. I should have. I was busy, but here I am. But how cool, again, right on the have a buddy, well, there's motivation. Mark, you had something you want to share?
Yeah, one of my clients is trying to learn German, and I think German's one of the harder languages because you can say a sentence in German and the last word changes the meaning of the entire sentence.
Yes.
And he sent me a little meme the other day. It said that, as hard as you try to learn German, German always thinks it's smarter than you. And it proves it. Yeah, he's been struggling to learn German. He wants to immigrate to Germany, and you have to pass certain competencies, and he's struggling mightily with learning, technical German, and but even conversational German, sometimes really frustrates him because like I said, you could say my friend is is dying today, of laughter, and then it changes the meaning of the entire sentence, and it's just again, and like I said, I think that makes German, because you have to hear everything the person says, because the last word might change the meaning of the entire sentence. So,
and I used to joke that that's why French is the language of love and German isn't, because my mother has a Buick Rendezvous, which is a French word. But I always joke that, well, if it would have been made in Germany, it would have been a Rendezvous. Doesn't quite sound as beautiful as a rendezvous. Yes, we're going to go take the rendezvous. Ah, das Rendezvous. And I'm, believe me, I grew up in a German area, and listening to some of them, here's another thing about language. You can deliver the same message, but if you don't know the tone that you're saying it with and the body posture and all the above, it can be taken completely the wrong way. Which leads us right into the next topic. Why so angry? And with that, it's a lot in language as well. You ever talk to somebody and you're trying to figure out why they're angry, but if you ask them if they're angry, they're like, well, of course I'm not. Why would you think that? Maybe because you're talking like somebody peed in your canoe? I don't know. You seem a little edgy. I'm not edgy. Whatever gave you that idea? Maybe that right there. And we know that being human and enjoying the human experience, we have days, things can set you off. There's also the joys of being hangry. I know I've had that happen a couple of times. But I think the challenge is when you're on the receiving end of deciding when is it appropriate, when do we need to point it out, and setting up the precursor and having the permission to point it out to certain people. And then, is it okay to help them? Now, if they're hangry, here's a Snickers. Obviously, Snickers was brilliant when they picked up on that idea. But we also know people, and I've brought this up before, that will take an event and milk it for a day, a week, a year. Well, what's wrong? Oh, I'm having a bad day. Or yesterday just sucked. Why did it suck? I had a bad day. Well, what happened? Well, first thing in the morning, I got up and I spilled my coffee. And what else? Well, the whole day went to pot. So how long did the experience of spilling your coffee last? I know you weren't spilling your coffee all day. Took what? 10 seconds for your coffee to leave the cup, hit the floor, da-da-da. That was pretty bad. And then you milked it for how long now? Well, no. You had a bad 30 seconds, possibly a bad 3 minutes because you eventually had to clean it up. But then you decided to hang on to the situation and allow it to ruin how much of your day? And in doing so, who else did you affect? Basically, you spilled your coffee on pretty much everybody else that came within 6 feet of you. Yes, Lenora.
I started to think about this today, especially when somebody's having a tough time and they're just kind of stuck in repeating it and repeating it. And there are times where it can really bug me and I'm like, all right, like my tolerance for listening to so much of it is maybe my own hanger, maybe whatever the peak is. And today I started to really think, you know, just be aware of yourself, Lenore. They're just having a tough time right now. And this is the mask that they're going to be sharing with you for a majority of the day. Just do the best that you can and be kind. And it has nothing to do with you and it's not about you. And that really gave me the space to just know that this is where they were and I can just stay much more balanced. And I started to think, okay, well, who else can I notice this about in my life and where they're going? And it really took on a whole new perception the more I thought about it, that I know where I am and I don't have to react to people. They're showing me their mask and I can choose to react in a certain way. And it gave me much more power. I don't know if that makes a lot of sense, but it really helped me stay much more even, much more balanced.
We actually talked about this on a triple T one time.
We did a number of
Yes.
times.
I called it protective empathy. Do you remember that?
I do remember that. And I had a different interpretation of it, so maybe I'm still digesting on protective empathy.
When you get to a point like that where you have the ability to go, this isn't about me. And you have the empathy to look at them and go, wow, you're hurting.
Yeah.
And I'm feeling it. You're taking it out on anybody around you because of the hurt, the anger, the emotions inside of you. And I'm so glad you brought this up because this is part of the why so angry.
Oh, perfect timing.
We need to be able to have that ability to look at some of these people and see beyond the words, beyond the emotion, beyond the reactions, and go, why are you so angry? It's not about the coffee. What else happened? What else is going on? And sometimes, if you just listen, you'll find out that this is the anniversary of my dad passing, or work. So many people have such a hard time leaving work at work, or leaving the coffee spill at home. And they carry this stuff with them beyond and trust me, guilty, been there, done that, still got scar. The kind where you're laying in bed and you're rehearsing all the things you should have said. And the best way I heard it put was, I laid in bed rehearsing all the lines for the movie I'm never going to be in.
That's the one.
Which makes me believe that some of the people that are screenwriters, basically it's like, well, if I was in this situation.
I think when I heard protective empathy, when I first thought about it, as in, if you're in a disagreement with somebody and they're starting to pull up all this other stuff, to realize, oh, they're bringing up other stuff. This, I saw it as first thing in the morning, you're going to bounce into a lot of people today, and things that they say likely are going to have nothing to do with you, and to just quite literally show up for them, support them to the best of your ability, and still protect yourself, and know when you need to step into the ring or when you can just take that back seat. And not the back seat, just I how you know what I mean? Like, okay, now
Yeah.
I need to really shift gears here versus being this other mask right now.
And I think it also comes down to emotional hygiene.
Get out of my brain.
At the end of the day,
15 minutes. I had 15 minutes.
ah, well, good. We'll be talking about this more in a bit, I guess, because
Coming soon.
we still have one more topic to try and fit in. But Holly,
Holly's on this too.
I had a question. I kind of wanted to follow up on this. So this Guy Winch, I can't remember the name of his book right this second. But he talks about the difference between ruminating and processing. And basically, when you ruminate, you make it worse. But so some people ruminate way too much. But then some people are so worried about ruminating that they don't process. And so like both sides can cause you to be unhealthy. I guess my question that keeps coming up in my mind is, why are we wired that way that we need to process? I mean, obviously there's that balance of, I kind of feel like when people ruminate, a lot of times it's because they're trying to process and they don't know how. They're getting that confusion. But like, what purpose does processing even serve?
well, first thing that popped up that the squirrel delivered to me, up to 80% of all sickness and disease is caused by repressed emotion. Knowing that, why do we have the habit of taking that emotion and shoving it into a little box in space inside of our body? I think a lot of it comes from programming, from environment and family and friends and all the above. I remember back in the day hearing, boys don't cry, big boys don't cry. Don't you yell at me. You take that and it was just people doing the best they could at the time. I think we've swung the pendulum way to the other side now. But that's a whole different topic. And Lenore's got her hand up, so.
Holly, was your question, why do we process emotion? Okay. So go ahead.
I was gonna say more like, why is the body wired that we need that? Why wouldn't it just be wired to say, you know what? I don't need to process anything. I'll just let everything like a water off a duck's back. Why isn't the body set up that way? What is the value of being wired to need to process it?
I think, and I had this question, and I'm going to try and put a pin on the generational one that TJ just had a couple weeks ago. And I think we're wired that way because we came here to feel and to really experience, and feeling is how we really know where we are in alignment with whatever other connection we have. And I tend to think a lot while I drive, and I kind of go into a trance. And when I had said, I had asked, but what's the purpose of feeling bad? And why do we have to do so much healing? And why is there is so much work about that? And what had come back was, we're healing the misalignment that occurred because we're here in this experience and with the intention of knowing what we do want, knowing what we don't want, feeling what feels good to us, feeling what doesn't feel good to us, but also recovering from what doesn't feel good to us. And just like an animal has the ability to shake it off, we have and TJ's going to love this one, the only way through is through because we really have to feel it. And, Abraham Hicks says, feel it for 17 seconds, or people will say 1 moment of courage. And I do find that when I feel those feelings, and more recently, there was a lot of shame that I was running the other way from, and I would not go down that rabbit hole. Thankfully, I have people in my corner that make sure I go down the rabbit hole so that I can process all the things that I need to process. And it was extraordinarily uncomfortable and painful, and there was a lot of tears, and it really processed for a number of days as I was coming through it. And it was really just the deeper understanding of I had to heal from that. I don't have to like it. I don't have to keep experiencing it, but I had to feel it in its entirety as much as I possibly could in that capacity at the time to move through it, to get to a new level, to get to a new layer of myself. And I was thinking this on, sorry guys, I'm just tangenting tonight. I'm not going to stop apparently. I'm traveling this week, and one of the things that we stopped to see was this cavern in Missouri, and with a cave. So they thought this was as deep as the cave was, and that's where it ended. And then people would explore this cave, and over time things had shifted, and people got more curious, and water levels changed. And then as they got more curious and things changed, they opened up a whole new area. And I'm like, oh my God, this is like personal work. You think this is all there is to life, like get up, go to work, go to a job, make money, to follow the line. And when you start to do personal work, you realize that there is this infinite cavern of space within you, and you get to explore it. And then the more and this is the other thing going into hour 2, the more you explore it, and the more you, what was the other word that you had said, TJ? And I said, get out of my head or something. The deeper you go with it, the more inner work that you do. And it's not just inner child, the more inner work that you do. And for me, it comes through with journaling, and it comes through with feeling on a regular basis that version of me that is scared, worried, upset, emotional hygiene. That's what it was. Feeling that version every single day, talking to it with kindness, and then feeling and looking at the future version of myself and how we can walk in harmony in this present moment from there to there. And I think it really comes down to feeling that we, especially if you explore any of Dolores Cannon's work, which I know Linda is really into, Dolores says that, people from throughout the galaxy, there hasn't been, there are periods where they don't feel anything. They don't eat. They do. They're just movement. They're just doing this, they're doing that. And I think this is the planet, this is the experience of feeling. And that is the language of that we're all communicating. We express it with our words, we express it with our body, we express it with colors, shapes, sizes, noises, of all things. And I think ultimately it really is all about feeling. And tangent.
Awesomely said. Mark.
Thank you.
What Holly said, again, processing versus rumination. And rumination is more about recapitulating an experience, bringing it up over and over again. So you get to re-experience that feeling of anger, because we're talking about why so angry, over and over again. Whereas processing is kind of what Nora was alluding to, is working through it. And but rumination is more about re-experiencing it, so you get to feel the same feeling again. And we seem to be hardwired for both, I think. And it's which one do you choose? Are you going to recapitulate it, or are you going to or are you going to process it? So I think we may be wired for both.
Well, you guys will like this, because I've got 5 minutes to fit in the third one, which is called maintenance. Guess where we get to go with this one? Yes. And I brought this up because my background in maintenance and construction and carpentry and mechanic work and stuff, if you don't take the time to do the maintenance on the front side, the repairs are much larger and more expensive on the backside. And this includes learning how to maintain and do maintenance for energy, anger, happiness, all the difference between rumination and processing. Processing is maintenance. Rumination, like Mark pointed out, is how many times can I relive it? And as I relive it, what is that doing? Is it amplifying? Because I've watched people ruminate over an event and they got angrier the more they ruminated. If they would have processed it right after it happened, done. But the more they thought about it, the angrier they got. The more the angrier they got, the more they thought about it. And it turned into this vicious spiral to where they made themselves sick. And so learning the advantage of maintenance for everything around us. Maintenance for your house, for your car, but maintenance for our body. Exercise, diet, emotional hygiene, tracking thoughts, journaling. A lot of times when we bring up journaling to clients, they're like, what, like keeping a diary? Well, kind of like keeping a diary, but more, it's almost like keeping an eye on the gauges in a vehicle. What's the oil pressure? What's the temperature? Or if you're cooking, how fresh are the ingredients? What temperature is the oven? How long are we putting it in? Is the oven even working right? Is the thermometer and all of these things we sometimes take for granted. Something as simple as when you go to bed at night, doing an emotional dump or recapping, but what are you paying attention to? Are you paying attention to what went wrong with the day or what went right with the day? Planning out the next day. What are your priorities for tomorrow? So that your brain doesn't have to sit there and think about that when it should be sleeping. When you wake up, what do you do when you wake up? There is a lot to be said about the maintenance of a wake-up routine. Getting up, and as soon as your mind realizes that you're not sleeping anymore and it is time to get up, what do you say to yourself? And one of my favorites is, oh, wow, okay. Sleep time is over. It's Tuesday. Oh, and I get to do this, and I get to do that, and tonight I get to do triple T. And I've been pretty, as Holly and I were discussing just before we started this, we're a little on the sleep deprived spectrum at the moment. We got here in our house, we got a stray dog that showed up that we've been kind of caring for. And, he doesn't know about sleep time. Sleep time is time to have communal conversations outside. And yet, I have to remind myself that I can't go back and reclaim that time, so I get to decide what it means to me for the start of my day. So here we are. Time will pass regardless. So what are you going to do with your time? You can invest it into learning new languages. You can invest it into learning emotional hygiene. You can invest it into mental, physical, emotional maintenance. Taking care of yourself, your environment, those around you. And that brings us to the top of the hour. So, yes, Lenora.
I'll wait. You can put it in. What's top of the hour? What's hour 2?
Hour 2 is it's time for open mic, open question. Who's got stuff? And I know I've pointed this out many times. I know my tribe. I know you all have questions, but you all tend to like to play the polite chipmunk. If anybody gets that reference, no, after you, no, after you. I didn't want to be first. I didn't want to intrude. I didn't want to. So, who's got some?
I would like to continue with rumination.
Rumination.
For 2 reasons. Depending on, especially when it comes to rumination, I think that there's times where we just want to feel something. In whether we want to feel this really joyful thing, and we can get really burned early in the years thinking that this really great thing is going to happen, and then it doesn't happen, and then we get let down, and then we get to still feel and ruminate and get really upset. It's a moving energy, which is a great thing because we're like, ooh, this feels good. At least I feel such and such, and it's way better than sad. That also being said, because I can go with the best of them, there are times where I also think, if I'm having a fight with somebody, or if I'm rehearsing it, or if I'm saying certain things, I've also noticed, oh, I'm not done there yet. Something is still bugging me about this person. Something is still bugging me about an event or the way that this person is making me feel. This is my attempt to move it. It might not be the best attempt because I know simply out of habit how to rehearse a fight. Like I can do that really well, but having to sit with it and to feel it and to process it and to write it out and to cry it out and to move it through, this is easier than really committing to this. And I don't always have time to sit down and do this. So this is just going to be how I'm going to kind of spin, and I don't get a lot of movement. That being said, if people notice it, to notice it as, am I wanting to feel something, or am I needing to clear something? Is something still stuck here? Is something still not holding me? Is something holding me here? So I do think that there is a purpose to rumination, and it's not always, because I did type in the chat, it's to feel something. Because there are times where I will stop myself mid-thought and going, all right, you could think about a million other things right now. Why are we here? And is it just because I wanted to feel something? Or do I need to get out of my head? And it really is, I think it was Jim Rohn where he had said, stand guard at the doorway of your mind. And oh my God, is that accurate? I told him in rare form tonight. But that's seriously wildly accurate, because it's the first thing you do when you get up, and it's the last thing that you think about. Who is at the gate? Who are you having a conversation with? And if you're standing guard, which version of you is trying to come through the gate? Are they coming in peace, or are they coming in havoc? And you really got to think about it. And it could really be exhausting, as in, I just wanted to have a nice, easy day. But then when you realize, like, oh, I had a great day today. What was it? And you rewind and you're like, oh, well, I did that yesterday, did that yesterday, did that yesterday. Mental, emotional, spiritual, pies. Love pies. Oh, man. Physical, intellectual, emotional, spiritual. Man, that person had that. That was a great one. When you do that, you get to experience those pleasant days, but you still have to feel those less than pleasant things in order to really enjoy. And that's where I think, especially, the emotional hygiene is so important. And it's not stressed, as in, it's not taught. It's not taught. Like, why isn't it taught in this country? Why isn't it right up there with knowing how to do your taxes? Because they don't want you to know. I'm waiting for the CIA to blast at my door. But yeah, I really don't think people want you to know. But also, it is work, but it's beautiful work that's well worth it. And if you can really take care of yourself and say, you know what, this is work that I know I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And I know every day won't be rainbows and sunshine, and it is what it is. But I'd rather do this than feel that. And that's enough out of Lenora for now.
Holly.
I just had a few downloads while you were talking about that. First of all, one of the things that came to me, so I believe a lot of, processing, and even when you're ruminating, I think a lot of times that's kind of like the check-in, when it starts, it's that check engine light on the car of something's wrong, you need to pay attention. And that's where that energy charge keeps coming up. So I think initially it's just trying to get your attention. But then we have a kind of a choice of, oh, something's trying to get my attention. I need to own it. And I need to extract the lessons, and I need to figure out, the phrase that came into my mind is, what I am bringing to cause this emotion in my life. Versus ruminating is, what is everybody else bringing that forced me to have this feeling, if that makes sense. One of the things that came up a lot was Chris Voss talks about in negotiating. One of the biggest emotions that comes up in negotiating is the F word, fair. And, I've been thinking a lot, too, because I've noticed one of the things that's been coming up for some of the courses I've been thinking about creating is this concept that people don't get mad at us necessarily for what we do. The thing that makes them the most mad is when we violate their expectations, which is so bizarre because you can have somebody who is the nastiest person in the world, but you know they're the nastiest person in the world. And so they come into your life and they do something relatively awful. And we kind of think, it's not that we're happy about it. They may not have priority in our life because of it, that sort of thing. But often we'll just be like, well, that's that person. That's John, And then somebody else comes into our life that we see as somebody who's really healthy and always doing the right thing. They do something that's a tenth as bad as what John just did. And we are absolutely livid at that person, and we let it ruin our entire week. And, we're constantly yelling at them and have trouble forgiving it. And we don't, that ability to step back and say, but what he did is only a tenth as bad as what John did, and we didn't get nearly as mad at John. It's kind of this really bizarre thing of, this comes into the, what am I going to own in this situation? And a lot of times it's also the flip of, I had somebody hurt me. And you know what? There was no judge that immediately came down and made it right. I want my feelings of being a victim to be honored. I want it to be, and once again, I think there's a place of saying, you know what, my feelings do count. They do matter. That's important. But I think a lot of times what we have to realize is I allowed a boundary violation and I don't have I need, so, it could be check engine light. What is it about my boundaries that are incomplete? What do I need to do to create a better boundary? Because I can't own their emotions. I can't own what they did to me. I can't own, and even if it may not be a person, it may just be I spilled coffee on myself. Well, what can I learn from that? Oh, maybe I need to not be running as late to work next time so that I have time to change my clothes if something bad happens. Or maybe I need to have an emergency outfit at work if I have that important meeting later. That, maybe I have a job interview later and I didn't have time to go home, and now it's like, oh, I missed out on my dream job because I spilled coffee on myself. Maybe that's it. Or maybe we need to learn that, we can still go to the job interview and explain, I am so sorry about my appearance. I spilled coffee on myself, but I'm here because I value this. Maybe you could use it as a reframe. Maybe you can use it as a chance to show them who you really are. And maybe you could have gotten that job, but you used the excuse of I spilled coffee on myself, not even go to the interview in the first place. So it's hard work. It sucks to have to look in that mirror and say, what did I bring to this? What, And sometimes, figuring out the skill set and the lessons, maybe we're not there where we could see all the lessons yet. Maybe we have to sit with that for a minute. But I think the difference comes, we ruminate when we try to blame everything, our circumstances and everything around us. We process when we look at what can we do different, what lessons do we need to learn to take from it. I don't know if that's right, but that's just kind of what came to me when you were talking.
Awesome sauce. Who's got something else to share on the topic? No? Well, guess who does? I do. What is one of the things that suffers the most from rumination? Relationships. Relationships. And there are so many relationships that never even happen because of rumination. And what I mean by that is somebody said something or made fun of us or made us mad, or we had a relationship that went south, and blah, 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 and we ruminate. And we have the opportunity to start a new one. But when we try to start, when we get ready to start the new relationship, what do? We bring all that luggage that we ruminated on and we built up and we da. And that's where wow, they're really attractive. I should go talk to them and say hi. And like Dr. David Snyder said, we take one step, and before we can take the second step, our mind has already played the entire video of us going up and going, hi, and they turn around and go, what is wrong with you? Oh my God, you're such a loser. And we're like, and nope. And we take all of that rumination energy and we let what could have been the best relationship ever never even get to the hello stage. I know. I work with people on relationships. And part of letting go of the past stories and experiences. Well, you don't understand. This one time when I was 12, she told me I was a loser. You're 32 now. That was 20 years ago. What was her name? Her name was you don't even remember her name from 20 years ago. And you're still ruminating on it, still believing what you came up with as a 12-year-old. What has it cost you? Emotional hygiene, mental hygiene, maintenance. Why are you so angry? What about? Because guess who's been guilty at it as well? Bing, bing, doo-doo. I know, because the other night on Facebook, happened to see somebody who apparently I still have a knife in my back from them, having a stupid argument with somebody else on Facebook And all that energy that I thought I'd put to rest, and I'm like, wow, doctor, heal thyself. This sounds familiar. Yeah, most of my clients, I thought I forgave him. And so I get it. I think that's how we help others with, like I brought up, protective empathy. The more we understand ourselves, the easier it is, I think, it is for us to understand others. Remembering what it felt like when we were like, what was bothering you that day? Oh, everything. Remember how you talked to that person that just said hello to you and you're like, whatever. What? Why are you so nice? What are you so happy about? Yeah. And then we go, oh, yeah. So that person that just looked at you the same way that you did back then, was that about you? Oh. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe they were just having a bad day. Could be. But they're not around right now. You don't have to try and figure it out. You just decide how much of their energy you want to wear. How much coffee did they spill on you, and do you have the ability, do you have more shirts? Yeah, I got a whole lot of shirts. What would happen if you just change your shirt and go on with your happy day? Yes, Lenore.
I read recently, your younger child wants to be protected and wants to be heard. Your teenager self wants justice, and your current self wants peace. And that really resonated with me. And I really like the idea of being able to step back in that moment and be like, okay, it was just coffee. I can regroup. I can regather myself. Or does this need to be escalated up the chain of command? But I think it gives us the ability to really play with stuff and say, okay, no, it doesn't need to be escalated. How do I want to navigate it? But again, having to stand guard at the doorway of your mind, having to decide, which way do I want to navigate this? Does this really need all my attention, or no? Are there more important things that I can entertain right now?
And one of my squirrels just came up with the idea. Also the ability to understand, how did the coffee get on you, as long as we're with that metaphor. Were they mumbling and yelling and screaming while they were trying to drink coffee and spit it on you? Did you accidentally bump into them because they were mumbling about their bad day and didn't see you? And it got spilled on you, or did they look at you and go, I don't like your shirt, and threw it on you? And yeah, protective empathy comes into play on all three of those. And the reason I call it protective empathy is when you get to a certain level of empathy, you can take a whole lot more energies because you realize they're not about you. And that protects you. And it doesn't excuse the other person. There's a difference between that's just who they are, or understanding that's just who they are. Versus that's not who they are. I wonder why this is coming out of them. I wonder what happened. I wonder, and I think in the wondering, the empathy builds in and goes, I wonder why they're hurting. I wonder what it would take to make it go away. Great quote. Thanks, Lenora. In the chat, those of you that are on the call or watching the recording, I keep forgetting to mention, you don't see people who have their cameras turned off, and you don't get to see the chat information. And Lenora put in there, there's a quote by Abraham Hicks that says, people will love you and hate you, and none of it will have anything to do with you. Which I'm sure some people out there are like, wait, what? What do you mean it has nothing to do with me? Well, sometimes it has nothing to do with you. And then there are other times when it has everything to do with you and you've earned that. You have to own up to that as well. Like they say, respect isn't owned or isn't demanded, it's earned.
And I hope this is on topic, but I've just come up with the thought that having moments of enlightenment doesn't
Would you please share that one more time, because your camera locked up? That's why all of us were like, we knew there was good stuff coming out, so share it again, please.
Okay, I hope I'm on topic, but the thought came into my mind that having moments of enlightenment or quite a bit of enlightenment in your own life doesn't preclude you from being an absolute idiot or a total dickhead at times. So, yeah.
No, exactly. And as soon as you said that, one of my squirrels said, that's the problem with motivation. Everybody's like, you just need a motivational speaker. You just need more motivation. Well, yeah, but if you're an idiot, now you're a motivated idiot. If you're motivated in the proper direction.
I like to think, Fran, that we're still human, and that, you know, especially when we look to some of our favorite teachers or some of our favorite spiritual leaders or emotional leaders, you know, and this also goes all the way back to Jesus, because a lot of his experiences, although were thoroughly documented, were burned. And we don't have a record of that. So we look at him as this great being, of which, hands down, can't deny it, he was. The fact that he had shared, at least I like to think of it, he had shared openly about it. And even, who's one really good one? Sadhguru will share about the human experience of it and really being able to navigate in and out. And I like to notice that, because there are times, especially when certain spiritual leaders, they vacate life and they go live on a mountain for 10-something years, and they're not in it every day. When you're in it every day, it's a different story. So allowing ourselves to have a little more grace that says, you know what? Okay, I did my best. I might have been a little bit of an asshole today, and I'm going to do my best tomorrow to not be like that. Yes. I hear you, Fran.
Perfectly said, Lenora. That is exactly right.
And when you brought that up, it reminded me of something that something that happened today with getting our house painted. The owner of the company, I got to watch him teaching a new guy how to properly spray and apply the paint. And I'd been chatting with the owner of the company, and so while he was watching, I walked up and I said, "Does he know how lucky he is?" And the owner looked at me and he goes, "Huh?" I said, "Does he understand how lucky he is?" And the owner called his employee over and said, "Will you say that to him?" And even though he doesn't speak English, I don't speak enough Spanish, the owner interpreted for me, and I said, "Do you know how lucky you are?" And he kind of looked at me and I said, "This is how I learned so many things that I can do. I didn't go to school for this. I had a man like this teaching me the way you're being taught." And the kid just kind of looked at me a little bit, and I said, "I'm on profession 28. And the kid kind of looked at me and I said, "I know electrical, plumbing, carpentry, construction, mechanic work, and da da da." And I said, "And I didn't go to school for any of them. I learned the way you are learning. You are very lucky." And that's also part of, I think it's one more thing that rumination can steal from you, is finding mentors, teachers, coaches, along with the same reason I ask a lot of my clients, do you want a coach or do you want a buddy? Do you want somebody that's willing to tell you what you need to hear? Or do you want somebody that will tell you what you'd like to hear? Do you want to feel good? Or do you want to advance? Lenora.
I love that you pointed out to him that he was so lucky. There was, and this was going back a number of years ago, and somebody had said, see everyone as a teacher, teaching you how you want to be or how you don't want to be, how you want to behave, how you don't want to behave, what skills you do want to have, what skills you don't want to have. And I remember thinking, especially on the topic that it was about, the person that I had learned this from it was all about emotional eating and eating disorders. And I remember being stunned, thinking, how could they be a teacher? That is a terrible teacher, the person that had taught me something that I didn't want. And I remember thinking that was an awful, awful teacher. That was just the worst teacher. And it took me a little while to really understand what they were saying, because I couldn't, for me, when I think teacher, I think they're kind and they're gentle and they'll listen to my millions of questions and they'll patiently sit with me. And teachers that are very short with me, that are like, why didn't you get it faster? Oh, I don't do well with. I know all of you are so surprised by this. No, I need a lot of care. And I remember just being very, very vicious at the idea of this. And then I then got mad at the teacher that I was learning from. Like, how could you say such a thing? And it took a while to process in my brain. So even now, I'll still think like, they're a teacher. They're a shitty teacher, but they're a teacher. They're a teacher. I have to go back and forth. But again, it's just, how you interpret it.
And the ironic part about that, they'll have a student that grew up in an environment that made that feel like home. And so when the teacher is like, tick, 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 and this and this and that, and that'll be the environment they learn from and that they attract to. I've had a couple of people that, oh, I just loved being in so-and-so's class. And I'm like, they sucked. Like, big time. Like Hoover. Like, there's vacuums named after it. But something about it clicked with them, and they understood the language and excelled. So again, like you pointed out, everybody's a teacher somehow. And there are lessons going on all around you 24/7, 365, if you're open to them. Anybody else got anything they want to add, or is we got? I'm sure we got more questions and topics that we can add. Holly.
If we're okay going on to another topic, I do have a question I'd like to go with that. If people want to respond back to that, they're welcome to too. Well, I had this kind of, I'll just put them both out and you respond to whichever you want. I had this dream. So when I get sleep deprived, I have very interesting dreams that I'm trying to process, and kind of interested to know, how much of this should I just say, oh, that's a dream, and are there actual lessons, and if so, what are those lessons to pull from it? So in this dream, I wasn't actually a player in it. I was just watching what was going on, which is very unusual for me. So the first one, it started out, there were a bunch of people that wanted to be professional boxers, and they had the opportunity to train with the best boxing coach in the world. But the deal was they had to agree, if they were going to go into this training program, they had to agree to have their memory wiped before they went into the program. And as long as they were willing to do that, and it was just for the duration of the program, once the program was over, they were going to get their memories back again. And anyway, I was watching them train, and one guy was training. Basically, the coach would, say, okay, I want you to, do a bunch of work. I want you to do a bunch of push-ups. He's trying to get him to train, do some jump rope, whatever it is, all of these different things. And basically, he kept saying, no, I don't want to do it. And it was just kind of like, oh, this is so much pain. All of this exercise that I'm having to do. Why would I do it? On the flip side, there was somebody else who got into it, and she was like, I don't know what's going on here, but pain seems to be what this is all about. And so not only was she going into all the workouts, but she would also give herself extra pain. She'd take like the jump rope and start hitting herself to because she just thought that pain was what it was all about. And then I didn't even get to finish that one story. That was right where it ended. And then I saw this woman who was going through life, and she was going through telling everybody what an amazing manifester she was. And so every time something would go wrong, she'd manifest the right thing. So if she couldn't find a parking spot, she'd get the best parking spot in the world. If somebody came, in her life that was, making her a little bit miserable, she'd manifest them leaving her life. If she didn't have enough money, she'd manifest a ton of money. And, everybody was looking at her like, you're so amazing. And she was but the thing is, there was something about her ego that was just bothering me. I'm the best person in the world because look what I can manifest. And then that ended, and, she ended her life. And then I got to see her watching her planning her life. And she was in the planning process, and she decided she wanted to become the person who was capable who was strong enough to overcome anything difficult. But she was told this has to be voluntary. So everything difficult you're going to go through has to be voluntary. So if you check in, you'll know, hey, this is growth, but you will always be given the chance to opt out of any challenge. And so she went through her whole life. Then she watched her going through her whole life, opting out of every challenge that came her way. And at the end, she just got this message of, congratulations, you manifested your life purpose of it. And then I woke up. So anyway, like I said, I'm still trying to kind of process what on earth does this mean? How much of that is a dream? How much of that are there actual lessons to learn? And like I said, if you want to go back to ruminating, that's fine too. But I thought I'd just throw both out.
Okay, second hour rules. Who's got some input for Holly? Now everybody's dreaming.
That was absolutely amazing. I loved it. But yes, you'd be pondering on it for a long time. But, when you get these sort of awakenings and questions, it does give you wonderful food for thought. That really was quite an enlightening moment, dream. Thank you for sharing.
I missed what happened at the end. Say it once more.
Oh, basically, for the woman who was manifesting everything well, she discovered that basically she manifested away all of her life purpose because she didn't want to do the difficult things, and it was always optional to do the difficult things. So instead of manifesting the strength and the growth, she manifested away the life lessons.
Holy bananas. Oh my God, that's so good. Okay, so I feel like this goes in hand with Mark from last week when Mark and TJ agreed that they see challenges as growth. And I had been seeing challenges as pain. And I think seeing challenges, seeing obstacles, seeing these things as not necessarily like, ooh, get excited, time for growth, but like being able to go through and say, okay, it's going to take a different level of bravery, different level of courage, and I'm going to go through this because I know I'm going to grow. Versus, I don't want to experience it at all. But wow, what a dream. Oh my God, I feel like this dream was so for you. Oh my gosh, this is so good. I feel like you need a journal, girl.
That was exactly where I was going to come in about, Holly, you need to journal. That's fabulous. And I mean, following on from Lenora, when you see these enlightenments and you don't know and challenges, and you don't know if you love them or hate them or embrace them or whatever, if you look at it all with humor and think that it's all rather funny, it gives it a whole new perspective again. And what was deadly serious and awful, actually, it has no meaning at all unless you give it some meaning. And that's kind of nearly next door to enlightenment.
I love that, Fred. Nearly next door to enlightenment.
And if you all spent time in my dream theater, literally, since I've been a kid, I knew back then that I remember back when I was a kid, they were like, everybody dreams in black and white. I'm like, no. Oh, you just fill in the, no. I dream in full Technicolor, and I tell you what, man, there are times that dream theater kicks my butt. I wake up just as tired as when I went to bed because in dream theater I've been going full throttle. And I've had a few people tell me that I need to start journaling and writing down my dreams, but I've got the answer. I know the answer. The answer is trying to write it down literally would be like with the detail that I remember, I just need to videotape them because there have been a number of times that I've told my wife and a few other people some of the dreams that I remember, and they're like for real. But yeah, down to license plate numbers, textures, colors, smells, activities, and my wife has watched me wake up and I'm just sheen with sweat and exhausted. And she's like, you okay? I'm like, okay, let me tell you my dream. And this happened, and then this happened, and then I woke up at 3, and then I went back to sleep, and then it was in this theater. And then I woke up, and then I woke up, and I went back, and I need some coffee.
And that's now you have the challenge to find this interface to plug into your brain so that you can actually present it as a video. Anybody that develops that technology would be so made for life.
That actually is the basis of the book that I'm writing called The Sideways Balloon, about a German scientist who got tired of insomnia because he would constantly wake up with ideas and have to write it down. And so he decided to build a machine that would read his mind and be able to take the notes for him. And once he got it perfected, the night before he was going, well, I'll tell you the end of the story later when it's not recorded for public viewing.
And that could be your worst nightmare, actually having a scenario like that.
Right?
We need to keep all these things that we won't accept about ourselves very private, because society would break down if it got out.
Well, I'm sure it'll be in the movie theater sometime soon, and I'll be like, but didn't get it written in time. Mike, good to see you. All right, we've got 19 minis left. Who's got another topic, question, something we can chase down? Come on. Come on.
Okay, I'll go.
Good answer.
All right. How do you gracefully end a conversation without looking like an ass?
Ooh, that last part was the kicker.
I know.
A little
Who's
more
got-
context.
Who's got an answer for Mike?
Oh, that's so interesting. And then walk away.
Who else?
I'll go. Oh. So something that I've learned is, and you have to be genuine with this because people can pick up whether or not you are being genuine. But just be honest with them and say, and you don't necessarily have to get in all the details and expose all your private, what you're going to do next or whatever, but you could say, I've been loving this conversation. Just so you know, I really need to go, but I am so glad that we got to have this conversation. Gives it a chance to just say, the reason I'm leaving is not because I'm trying to be a jerk or because I don't find what you're saying is interesting. It's because, we all have lives. Maybe I need to get home to do my laundry. Maybe I need to get home to take my mom to the ER. Who knows what it is? I don't have to tell them that specific detail. But if it's, I've been loving to have this conversation, but, I gotta go at the moment. Or even if, say you're staying in the same place, say, there's somebody I really need to have an important conversation with and I need to leave soon. So thank you so much for this conversation. If you want, you could also even say, if you want to do this, here's my email. I'd love to hear the rest of your story if you want to type it up and send it to me. But just so you know, I have a really important conversation I need to have that I've been waiting to have, and I just got to go take care of that for a minute. But thank you so much for the conversation.
Or the old hackneyed one of my parakeet's having an existential crisis. I have to go.
Yes. Lenora.
I was going to ask for a little more context, Mike. Is this with a family member? Is this with a coworker? Where are we?
Mostly like, general public, but there are times when it is with family that, they kind of know the excuses. I know. And you're getting to the point where you want to just chew your leg off from the bear trap.
What I often like to do is depending on, so let's go with, they're just going on and on. I will let people know, before the last, I just want to let you know I have 5 more minutes. And I will timestamp people because if there isn't a long enough space, well, it's been good talking to you, and then they start up again. If you give them a deadline, like squeeze in your last minute, well, that's great. Okay, I have 1 more minute. I have to go take care of this. I will listen next time, or I'll talk to you next time. Whatever it is, however you want to do it. Give them a time limits.
I would say, hey, this has been really interesting, but I got to go see a man about a horse.
Okay,
Now,
and when you're talking to your mom and you're like, okay, I gotta get going, whatever, and you hear that tone of disappointment that has been inbred since you were 3.
uh,
I love the joint head nod that we all just had.
Holly.
Okay, so a couple things popped up for me for that one. I don't know if you've read the book Boundaries, when to say yes, how to say no. One of the things they talk about, especially with parents, because it's well, they gave birth to me, they raised me, like all this like guilt can come with it even on top of stuff. But they kind of pointed out in the book, first of all, you have to recognize that is a manipulative tactic. And if you don't have healthy boundaries with it, you are enabling bad behavior on their side, which they're not just using with you. They're using with all of their other friends. If you truly love them, they're going to train them not to do that anymore. There's going to be a growing period. Matthew Hussey calls it the teething period. I love that particular phrase. But as we were discussing kind of at the beginning of this call too, towards earlier in the call, people don't get mad at us for what we do necessarily. What makes them so mad is when we don't live up to their expectations. But so every time before it was they could guilt you into talking when it wasn't healthy for you to be doing so, and you just kept going and you don't get any of your life done because you spend your whole life listening to them. They expect you to keep doing that. And the first few times you say no, it's going to be, you destroyed my life, you betrayed me, blah, 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 blah. That's how you feel. But if you stick to it and you say, this is what I always do, after about the 6th, 7th time, they're going to say, oh, this isn't personal. This is just who you are. This is your boundary. And it won't hurt them as much as it used to hurt them. Because that's the problem, is because you've done it before, the first few times they do it, they're going to take it personally. What did I do this time that you're having different behavior? But if you stick to it, they'll say, oh no, it isn't personal. This is just the new them.
And Lenora's time frame of, look, I got to go in a minute, or I have to go to the toilet or something.
Now, I got a question for you, Mike. Fast talker or on and on talker?
Continual talker that doesn't take a breath.
Perfect. Okay. Now, I will let you guys know I didn't have to deal with this with my mother, and I'm not saying that because she's watching. I love you, Mom, and you know you don't do this. But I've had other mothers that I've had. Mom knows I've got a lot of moms. And it's kind of a nasty little trick for people that like to drone on and on and on, is you go, wait. What was that thing that you were talking about before? It was really cool, but you keep going, and I wanted to ask a question, but I couldn't, you didn't give me a chance to ask the question. And now it's nagging me. What was it? And they're like, what? Yeah, if you think of it, let me know, but I got to get going. If I think of it, I'll give you a call. And I've done that with a number of people. That's why I said if they're a fast talker or an on and on, it's you just do a really quick stop. Stop, wait a minute, wait. What was it? You said something a little bit ago, and I wanted to ask a question, but I couldn't get a word in. God, I can't remember it. Oh, and I gotta go. If I think of it, I'll let you know. But I gotta go. Love you, bye. Lenore.
And I love when Holly shares all these things from Matthew Hussey. And there's also another really good person, and I'm going to see if we can put it in our Triple T chat, that we follow on Instagram. And I say we because I know a number of us follow this person, and he gives these really great ways to navigate around tough situations. And one thing, let people know. Start the story as I was really reading this book, and I'm really taking into account how I'm spending my time, and I'm doing my best to really focus on important things. And one of them that I'm going to start doing is I'm going to really take notice of my conversation, because I have other things to do and I don't want to get lost in a conversation and have all these things that are important to me get on the back burner. So you're putting it out there. So don't be surprised if our conversations are going to be about 15 minutes on average. And that way you had the opportunity to talk. You also started a conversation, so you're threading it, saying like, oh, hey, did you read anything new? Did you ever notice this? Did this ever happen to you? And then you're also sharing what to expect from you in the future. And that way they don't take it personally. And they're like, oh, he's doing something different. And if you get the response of, oh, well, you think you're better than us, so just be prepared for that. And be like, no, it's just, I want to try something new. I'm really doing this for me. And notice at any point how your tone is. Because if your tone shifts, you want to carry your tone in confidence and competence as much as you can, especially when people are coming after you, and sincere. So there's a fine line between confidence and cocky. And we don't want to go to the cocky one. We want to stay in the confident one, and we want to stay in the sincere one. This is something that I'm working on. And, I was in a group the other night and I really enjoy working, and they raised a really good point about this, and keep talking about how you're threading it through and what you're noticing, and then what they can expect from you. And then that way you also have a conversation for a little bit.
Holly.
I keep having so many epiphanies for everything everybody else is saying. Another thing that I'll sometimes use, depending on who the person is, and this is always genuine, so I might say to somebody, if they call up, you're using multiple options, but they call up and I'll say, just so you know, if you want to have a conversation, I've got 15 minutes right now. If it needs to go longer than that, well, we can always talk another time. Or if 15 minutes is good, I just know myself. I know that I won't respect my time. So if you're up for it, why don't we hop on a Zoom call and we'll get into a breakout room, and I'm going to put a timer on it. And then that way I will for sure leave when I need to leave to make sure that I get to what I need to do next. And then you do it. And then the timer kicks you out of the breakout room and automatically stops the conversation. And then you just end the room. And if you start doing that on a regular basis, they recognize, okay, this person has a firm out. They will leave even if it's mid-sentence, but it's not them cutting me off. It's the Zoom timer cutting me off.
Utilizing technology.
Those are really good answers. I really appreciate that. So what do you do when it's a client? So I'm a home inspector, and it is a call on a telephone, and we're going over a house, and I'm like, I got 5 minutes, and now we're at 6 and 7, and he's still bringing up new things. I guess it's just break off and say, I need to come back in an hour and a half, and let me give you a call back, I assume would be the proper on that one, correct?
Well, for a start, that's getting free consultations online, and you have other clients to deal with. So that's pushing their boundaries when it's a client professional relationship. Yeah, I mean, you're there for emergencies, but not for general conversation and just having yeah, they're getting free consults.
Yep.
In my opinion.
And you can also use package or timing stuff. Did you want this to be is this something you would like in a separate session, or were you hoping to extend this session? I just want to know how to bill it.
Good one.
It's all in verbiage and not being afraid to understand that, we're having a nice chat, but it's not a free chat.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I charge by the minute, not by the session, not by the change work. Because
and you still have other clients to manage as well, and they need to, if they want to, they have to honor that for you as well and for your other clients.
Yep. And I let them know that there are going to be clients that they need to talk to build up that rapport to be able to pull out the demon. And if that's the case, that's the case. But as long as they understand, especially in the consult, that I charge by the minute, not by the hour, or the minute, not the change work, not the session, I will push to, okay, let's get to working on this. This is a great story, but let's get to working on this. And the other thing that I do to help is in the consult, I let them know that we're not done until you're back safe to a safe location. So if Pandora's box opens up and the seven-headed dragon comes out and brings the whole trailer park with it, I'm battling with you until you are back to a safe place. And I let them know. And I've had clients that have gone 4 hours straight. That being said, when I have a session with you, when I have an appointment with you, when I have a session scheduled with you, if I don't show up, I promise you, I'm not on YouTube watching funny cat videos. I'm with another client battling to get them back to the safe place, because that's the same promise I will give you. That allows them to know that, yes, you can go over time. It's not free. If I'm not on time, I'm not fooling around. It also gives them that comfort level of, wow, that this person wants to change. And there will be some times when they can feel like, okay, process as long as it takes in the next few minutes.
Similar to TJ, I have a tiered structure where my first hour is this fee, which is the higher fee. But because some people need more time and I don't want to stop them if they're in important flow, I then have a lower rate for the next period and a lower rate for the period after that, but they are being charged. And I use 15-minute increments. So if they do need to take 2 hours, 2.5 hours, they're not put off because it's costing too much. So that's my thinking, especially for people who haven't got a lot of money. And maybe other people won't agree with that, but kind of what I've worked out for people who think, oh, it's a lot of money to put out. And, my first hour is this much. If we can get the work done in that, great. But if you need to go on, this eases the possibility, so it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg. Just a thought.
Yep. Well, we got a minute and change left. Anybody got any closing comments, questions, things they need cleaned up before we get on out of here for the end of number 122? Any comments, epiphanies, ahas?
Great,
I'm wondering-
guys.
I'm wondering for the next couple sessions if we can work into working with narcissists and how to do that dance.
Oh, that's a deep, deep, big well. Yes, lots of all sorts of stuff about narcissists. So, yes. And feel free to speak up right away at the beginning of the second hour, because I've got a feeling that we could burn up the entire hour on narcissists, and I have no problem with that because I have a lot of clients who come to me on behalf of the narcissists in their life. I have a love-hate relationship with narcissists. I hate what they do to people, but I like the business they send me. Because I'm getting pretty good at fixing their work. Kind of like a transmission specialist who gets to talk about people that put big trailer hitches on small cars. That's a really dumb idea, but I like the business.
And another topic for next time, how to gracefully admit you're wrong. I'm wrong. And get on with things. I find that I have so much obstinacy about when I really know I'm wrong underneath it, but I'm not going to admit it. And I'm really angry because I know deep inside I'm wrong or I should have done something else. And I'm not going to change my position no matter what.
You want to know something interesting, Fran?
What's that?
We lightly danced all over that. But the best part is it's all recorded. If you get a chance, watch the recording, and then next week let us know what questions you have that weren't answered on the recording.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. It's amazing how that stuff works. That being said, that puts us at the end of our hour, unfortunately. I hate this part, but I told myself I was going to stick to this because I want to respect your guys' time. I will say it every single time. Time is the one thing I haven't figured out yet how to give back to you. As soon as I do, you will know. But until then, the fact that you guys have given up your very precious commodity of time to be here on this platform, to be part of this tribe, I still do not have the vocabulary to thank you as much as I would like to. So I'll simply say, love you all. For those of you on the recording, night, Mom, love you. And for the rest of you, if you watch this recording all the way to the end, you rock. Please do all of the YouTube and video stuff. Hit the subscribe and ring the bell and share this with other people. Hopefully there's got to be other people out there that can get something out of this. And if there is, please leave a comment, because I like the comments. Until then, go out in the world, make it the best possible, be the best version of you can. Tomorrow, be the even a better version, and just keep trying to be the better version than you were yesterday. Take care of yourself, live well, smile, laugh, and if there's anything I can do for you, let me know, please. Until then, love y'all. Bye.
Thanks, TJ. Good night, everybody.
Woo-woo!